Running an online business is hard enough without the stress and time consumption of managing hosting. Whether managing one WordPress site or dozens, Kinsta's managed solutions offer speed, enterprise-grade security, and an intuitive dashboard. With 24/7 365 human-only expert support, get peace of mind that your sites stay online, secure, and performing their best. Start today and get your first month free with migrations handled for you. Learn more at kinsta.com/podcast. That's KINSTA.com/podcast.
You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today, and just like any other time, we have another awesome guest for you all today. Today, we have a honor talking to John David Graham. He has an amazing website, JohnDavidGraham.com. That's JohnDavidGraham.com. We're going to learn everything about what he does. I mean, he's the founder of Good Samaritan Home. It's a housing and mentoring program that's helping men and women restart their lives after prison. He has a story himself, and we're going to learn everything about what has brought him to the point of what he's doing today, helping people, and he has the ability to help you today if you listen. So first and foremost, John, just want to say to you, thank you for your time. How are you doing today?
Glad to be here, Shemaiah. Thank you for having me on.
Appreciate you being here. And like I said, you have a pretty awesome story yourself. So before we start talking about Good Samaritan Home, kind of tell us a little bit, what is John's story? How did all this today start?
Interesting. I grew up in the 60s, and everything in the 60s was about change and turmoil and conflict and violence, too. 1968 was probably our critical year where we had major political assassinations, civil rights protests, racial riots. We had Vietnam War protests, and I was going to college in the middle of that, and it was so intense that I think we lost faith, not just in our country, we lost faith in ourselves. And out of that, I ended up going from job to job to job with a degree, but no ability to apply it. So I was a truck driver, I was a children's home counselor, I was a fireman, I was a journalist. Being a minister, thinking I could help other people. And I just never did well anywhere because I just couldn't find my fit until I was 53 years old. And I had a wife and family. We'd gone through 4 states and 8 careers, uprooted my family. And that's when we decided maybe we can help other people who are struggling, maybe more than us. So we ended up using my background in construction to remodel an old house and use it as a shelter to help other people who were struggling. And when we did that, the Department of Corrections said, we have people coming from prison who are low risk, but they just need stable housing temporarily. Can you help? And so we partnered with the Department of Correction with our own house by sharing a room. And over the next several years, we added on, and grew in our stability, helping the Department of Correction in the community. And today we have 19 houses, and we have helped 2,500 men and women coming out of prison restart their lives. And I owe it all to this idea of giving back to those who are suffering more. So you give out of your own need, and out of that, you not only help them, but you help you. That has been my philosophy. And that's where we are today.
Yeah, I can tell you have a passion of helping people, and I think that's a great concept to anybody who's trying to make a actual real impact in people's lives. You have to actually do something that is going to address a pain point that they're currently experiencing. When you think about your pain points, your personal pain points, how has your personal experience of overcoming those hardships allow you to really dive deep in working with these individuals?
Well, I've never been to prison, but there's a basic need in all of us that, or a shortcoming or a flaw, and it usually comes out of family structures. And the common thread I'm finding with the men and women coming through our homes is that the lack of family, not just direction. We like to talk about rehabilitation, but I'm finding that habilitation is the key issue. They've never learned the basic skills because father wasn't there, mother may or may not have been there, grandma raised them, or the foster system. And my home, although not that intense, was similar. I call it growing up alone, where you live at the same address as your family, you eat at the same table, you have the same last name, but you're strangers. And how can you go out into the world and if you have no tools, no support system? And ultimately, you will go where you're welcomed, and that's often the street. So I'm finding that if somebody is given a chance, they want to get back off the street, and that's all we offer. We don't look at what they've done. We look at where they want to go next. And that's why the recidivism rate or the failure rate it tends to be so low with some support in reentry. So in some respects, I can identify with these men and women because I went through a long period of not knowing where I fit to, or just looking for a way to do something with my life that had meaning. And I have found that you give somebody a chance. Our best example was we partner with the Reentry Coalition in the county. Our houses are located in Western Ohio, and so it's in the Dayton City region. And the county commissioners would have this Reentry Coalition training course where they would teach men and women how to get a job. It sounds simple, but you imagine if you have somebody who's never had a job, and now we're using cell phones instead of the newspaper to get a job. So they teach them not just how to do an application, they teach them how to show up for the interview and even provide a suit and a graduation certificate that says you have learned job skills on how to go into the market. And you'll find a man who's 50 years old, and he holds this plaque up with his new suit, and he's crying because he's never gotten recognition for anything in his life except what he did wrong. And that positive impact can literally turn around his life. And then that can help his family. It can help the community. Everybody wins when somebody stays out of jail and goes and gets a job, as long as we're willing to do the steps to get them there.
Once again, you listen to Refocused Radio and watching us online, and we are talking to John Graham. I want to say, I appreciate you saying that because a lot of times society can look at certain people and wherever they come from and be like, well, I guess they don't care. They don't want to try. But it does sometimes take that helping hand of someone who cares enough to say, you know what, you're better than this. And here are some tools that will take you from where you are to where you can go. When you look at the success stories of the people that you've been able to help, what you believe is maybe the number one factor that determines if they will remain committed or not?
Well, the biggest issue we deal with is addictions and mental health issues, because if with the prevalence of drugs and using drugs to self-medicate, particularly if you're coming out of some dysfunction, you like to think it solves your pain, but actually just exacerbates it. So that's where we have to partner with the drug counselors and the drug issues and the mental health counselors, because if you can get somebody stable superficially, then you can deal with the underlying issues. And you take somebody like Jimmy, he had been in and out of prison most of his life. And when he came to us, he was 67 years old, schizophrenic, and they found him in his truck in the middle of winter near death because the truck had broken down. And he had been a veteran, so the VA hospital asked if we could take him, and they would guarantee his schizophrenia medication. And Jimmy came to us for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a year. Jimmy stayed 14 years and became not part of our family, but about as close as you can get. And when he died at age 81, he said, "This was the only home I ever had." And that to me, and without his medication, he was banned from the mental health office because he was so bizarre. But on his medication, working with the VA, he actually was a decent guy. And he would often say, he'd come over to our porch and say, "I just want you to know I love you guys." And all we did was just meet him where he was. That's all.
That's very enlightening, and that's inspiring as well, because before we move further, if there are people that may know someone or may be a candidate themselves or know someone that will probably benefit from the work you do, what's the process look like for someone to reach out and go through, start to finish, how they can find out if they'd be a good fit to use your services?
Well, we're contracted with the Ohio Department of Correction, so it have to be a referral would have to come through the parole department, so they have to be on Ohio supervision, and so that limits our outreach in some degree. But I'll be quite candid: Ohio, surprisingly, is very progressive in reentry issues, probably one of the best in the nation, because they did some academic research about 25 years ago, and they found that there are some basic things needed for reentry. And the primary issue is housing. If you can offer housing, then you can offer a degree of stability. That will lead to a job. That will lead to paying your bills, paying your child support. Actually, it opens up doors to everything. And so by partnering with all these issues together, now there are other agencies just like ours, and I'm sure they're in other states too. But what I would recommend people do is contact me through my website, and we can certainly find some option somewhere, somehow.
Well, I appreciate you doing that. And once again, if you're tuning in, you listen on Refocused Radio and watching us online, go to his website, johndavidgraham.com. Again, that's johndavidgraham.com. When you look at life, people, they have faith and they believe what they believe. For you personally, what's some of the things that you look at, especially when life is beyond your control? What are some of the things that you hold on to keep you grounded as you navigate your life?
What I found through those 30 years when I'm going from job to job, it would be really easy to quit. And when I turned 65, I wanted to write a book, always wanted to write a book, but I determined to write a book about second chances. And because that was what my life had represented and my work now with Good Samaritan Home. And so I wrote this book, and it took me 3 years to write it. And I said, I'm going to publish it. It's a great story. And it was rejected again and again and again. And I wrote it, I rewrote and edited and rewrote. And for the next 7 years, I worked on that novel. I spent 10 years getting that novel to the point where it was a good story about second chances. Something I call it, it's like Titanic. Titanic is a story about lifeboat safety, but it's a love story that pulls you in with Jack and Rose. And that's what I wrote. It's called Running as Fast as I Can, about Daniel Robinson struggling for a second chance to find love and forgiveness. But here's the thing. That novel was rejected by publishers 200 times. Wow. 200 times. And on the 201st time, it was picked up by Don Quixote Press. And in the past year, it's not only sold 12,000 copies, that's incidental. It's gotten 30 awards for inspirational fiction. And what it's done is it's generated conversations about second chances. And that's what matters most. I want people talking about second chances. So here's what I would say to everybody. You will fall down in life. You will make mistakes, but life is not a sprint. Do not quit running. Get up, run again. I ran for 30 years until I founded Good Samaritan Home. And I ran for 10 years getting published. And in the end, we do win as long as you keep running. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
That's an amazing statement to not just share with our audience, but it's the truth. When you look at life, you have one or two choices. I would say one or the other. You can choose to keep going, or you can choose that there's nothing else for me to do. And if you choose that there's nothing left for you to do, you will lose every future opportunity.
And that's one thing that does concern me greatly with the whole racial concept today, is that there's a tendency with some people, my residents can feel that way. I'm here because of my skin color. I'm here because of something else. And that may well be true, but we have to take responsibility and get up, even though they push you down. Like Dr. King said, that if you're a street sweeper, you sweep those streets like Michelangelo painted pictures, because they want you to just do your best at whatever it is. And that's what I tell people. Jesse could not read or write, but he's a dishwasher. And so he is the best dishwasher in that restaurant they have, because that is what he can do well. Even though he can't even read and write, he can wash dishes. And Jesse not only succeeded in our program, he's renting from us, and he'll probably be with us indefinitely, because he found a home where he can be safe. And that's he's doing his part, so we can help him do our part.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing you just said. When the person does their part, that's when open doors start to show up in your life. And you cannot control the doors that close on you, but you can control how you are in the moment, because what you're doing that very moment, it is possible that it can open up a future door. And it's a domino effect. Once you start growing, once you start applying and doing the things that are necessary, that's where the magic happens. It doesn't happen to wishful thinking like, oh, I just wish I just get this opportunity. Well, get in line, buddy, because everyone will wish for a lottery ticket to be the winning ticket. I know I'll be the first one to raise my hand, but anything that's of value, it takes commitment, it takes sacrifice, and it's usually the one you see in the mirror. No one else is going to sacrifice for you.
And the funny thing is, it's the rejections that make us stronger. It's the setbacks. It's the failures. If we get up, I think of rejection like a broken bone. Yes, it can cause us to limp, but it can also make us stronger. Wow. And if we have a limp, if we lean on somebody, we can walk strong together.
Man, that was good. I appreciate that, because that is something that we don't always focus on, pay attention to. It's easier and more convenient to blame everybody and say, well, it's because this happened to me, or it's because they rejected me, or, well, like we are saying right now, it's up to you, the individual, to say, you know what, wait, I know this is probably not the best sunny day in the current time of my life, but it might be shady today, but that doesn't mean the sun's not coming out tomorrow. It doesn't mean that it's the end of the road. Sometimes we're at the bend of the road and we don't know what's on the other side, but you definitely will not know what's on the other side if you stop and quit right now. And you will never understand that sometimes things work together for you to have a presented opportunity. And I like to say, that success is heavy and it can crush you if you're not ready for it. So as we're getting close, what will you say to how people can understand what success is? Because sometimes if we are not preparing ourselves, when it does come, it can crush you. And if it comes prematurely, you may not be able to manage it well.
Interesting you should mention the lottery, because studies have shown that people who have won the big lotteries, almost without fail, every one of them have end up in a worse place. They've not only lost their money, but they've lost their family. They brought out people. The wolves come out of the woodwork, and it has always proved to be their undoing, because there's no preparation. And whenever something is given like a lottery, there's no earning of it, and there's no appreciation of it. And it's almost like the temptation in the wilderness. It will eventually pull you down if you're not careful. It's like athletes who make suddenly out of high school all this god-awful money, and 5 years later, when they lose their career, they're broke. And at 25 years old, their life seems to be over, because they thought it was a sprint, and they didn't realize that it's a slow marathon to not just to find success, but to find maturity. And it took me a long time. I'm 76 years old, and I'm just now reaching the point where I think I can keep up with the crowd. It just takes a lot of work.
I like how you said it takes not just being mature, but the slow process, the slow daily check-in. Like, a lot of times we want to wake up tomorrow and it's like, yeah, I want all the success in the world. I just want to start the business and then have 20,000 clients knocking on my door. But that's not how it works. Because even if you did get to 20,000, they can stop, and then the next 3-4 years, you're just kind of limping along and trying to, make things work. But what I'm trying to say is, when you look at life, it is made brick by brick of what we decide to do. Touch on that for the audience, because our decision making, even if we don't make a decision, you're still making a decision to delay the decision. Talk to the audience about the importance of actually being decisive in what we're doing, especially when we're talking about the whole making progress and looking at life as a marathon versus a sprint.
And I will say that starting off with any entrepreneurial work, no matter if it's nonprofit or not, there is great risk. And when we started, 20 other agencies started just like us, because faith-based initiatives were very popular under President Bush. And today, we're the only one left, because so many of them were looking for the easy grant money. And we said, we're not looking for the grant money. We're looking for the need in the community. And for 5 years, we had no income. I had no income for 5 years. So I would say is that whatever you're going to do, don't ask what you want to do. Say, what does the community need? And then you take off the white shirt and tie, put on your work clothes, and go out and get dirty to do that. And I spent, I don't know how many years it was, remodeling these old houses, because we couldn't afford anything. So we would buy the oldest house in the neighborhood and fix it up so the community would get a better house. But also, by doing it ourselves, this became a representative of changing lives, changing houses, remodeling people. And so it remodeled me. I can't tell you how many times I crawled through an attic or a basement trying to get the wiring and the plumbing right. And the funniest part was, I was in a sewer manhole for this one house. I'm up to my eyeballs in waste, if you get my drift. And I told my wife, I stuck my head up and I said, I've got a doctorate. And here I am. But that's the lesson. There is no job too dirty, no job too hard, if it's for the good of the community. Just do it.
Yeah, I love that, because that's a great point to think on, because a lot of times we can see ourselves too important to do certain things, because we have this selfish attitude, I would say, that, well, I'm too good to be doing this. Like, I'm like you said, this title, that title, I should have to do this. This is for the others, or this is for this lower position. I think life humbles us real fast when we think too highly of ourselves. And my last question for you will be, you as the founder of Good Samaritan Home, our audience, what do you hope that just fundamentally that they'll be able to appreciate about your life message and what you try to do for these amazing people that you're helping?
I would say that you may never have gone to jail. You may never have been addicted to something, but all of us, I believe, wrestle with our own self-doubts, wrestle with our insecurities, particularly today. We're living in a what we call a tribal culture, where people are separating according to their minor ideologies, and they're pointing fingers because they're afraid. And fear has always motivated our basest emotions. And right now, it reminds me of like I said, of 68. And what I want us to do to get back and to revive that voice of reason of Gandhi and of King and Mandela. And I want us to look back and say, how do I, like Mandela said, how do I learn to forgive? Even though they don't deserve forgiveness, if I don't forgive them, God will not forgive me. I need a second chance. So I would encourage people to find little ways to forgive those who hurt us. And on a small way, if you need the encouragement, check out my book. You can download several free chapters on my website and just take a look at it, because I believe that all of us need to have a story of hope. And that's what the book is. It's a story of hope of somebody who struggled like you and me, and he made it eventually, but it's never, never easy. That's the story of life. You will make it, but it won't be easy, but you will make it.
Great words. Once again, listen to our Refocused Radio and watching us online, talking to our guest today, John David Graham. Go to his website, johndavidgraham.com. Again, that's johndavidgraham.com. You can get his book there, and I'll make sure it's in the show notes as well. Like always, John would say to you, thank you for your time.
My pleasure. You get me all excited talking about these things.